Hey guys, it's Corbett and Grace, co-hosts of Home Diagnosis and the video team for Home Chem. We are in San Francisco on a family trip, and while we're here, there's a magical person that we need to talk to.
Hi! It's really great to meet you. Grace?
Corbett.
Hi.
Arlene Blum, famous rock star, mountaineer, biophysical chemist. Thank you very much for meeting with us.
She not only is an incredible mountaineer, she is a PhD chemist. When flame retardants were a big problem in kids' pajamas back in the 70s, she helped get that outlawed, the chemical being tris, which is awful. But then, like a big bad genie, it came back.
And she's figured out that the problem is that we're really focusing on one thing at a time because chemicals are innocent until proven guilty. So she's kind of changed the entire way we talk about chemicals in products that you and I use and we expose our children to. So
All the time.
Having all of our stuff with us that we're traveling with was a unique chance to have her kind of look at our life and say, well, here are the things that might be problematic for you. And so as a part of this entire home chem conversation, we thought that the real rubber meets the road. What should we buy and how do you decide to bring things into your home because they're safe is really critical to have.
She started out going after like a boogeyman chemical and discovered 6 classes of boogeyman.
6 classes of chemicals, and this is what we're going to talk to her about in the Green Science Policy Institute where we're parked right now. So let's go in. I would like to empty our pockets really quick and just have you look at us. We started watching some of your videos and reading your articles.
And it was a little bit like, we feel like we're already tripping down this slippery slope of products.
So we're here with our daughters. This is something that my daughter has been chewing on for 2 years. I have no idea what this is made out of. We just wanted to kind of have you look at us and say, here's what's wrong already, just from first glance.
I would say, on average, a chair you're sitting in, the foam, could well be 5% a toxic flame retardant, which is coming out.
Every single time you sit on it, or just always coming out?
Always. There's lots of flame retardants in the chair and not very many outside, and they want to equalize, so the flame retardants are always coming out. Little ones like you have usually have 3 to 5 times higher levels than their parents of these chemicals, and sometimes even 100 times higher. You know, if they've been chewing on their car seat or blood levels, urine levels, what you're measuring. Yeah.
So the people who have the least developed immune system and are the freshest and most capable of being screwed up are the ones that are probably being messed up by all this stuff. It's not about us.
No, yeah, and a lot of these SVOCs, semi-volatile organic compounds, stay around a long time, and so we end up, for example, carpeting. Mm-hmm. Most carpeting is treated with stain repellents, and those stain repellent chemicals, they're the first of our 6 classes, the highly fluorinated. They're my favorites because they're the worst.
That's why it's number 1.
Well,
you like difficult things.
So they don't break down ever. There are no breakdown pathways. They're called forever chemicals. So the fluorinated chemical that might have made your Gore-Tex jacket or your Teflon fry pan will be on
or
the
that I
planet
sprayed my shoes with to keep them water repellent is highly
or that
fluorinated.
you waxed your skis with.
Wow.
And this undershirt I've got on is like wrinkle resistant. Is that somewhat the same?
No, there might be a little formaldehyde there.
A little formaldehyde. We actually built our house with formaldehyde-free wood.
Great.
And
Excellent.
yeah, thank you. But now you're wearing it.
Well, maybe not. I'm not sure about that. I do know, if you've got anything waterproof, stain repellent, that's likely to be treated with fluorinated chemicals, almost for sure.
And we made fluorinated chemicals. It's not just a naturally occurring thing.
They're man-made. Yeah, there's about 5,000 kinds.
5,000.
So is that 5,000 of the 80,000 chemicals that you talk about?
Yeah.
In the whole industry of...
Yeah, and I don't really know how accurate that 80 is, but there's a lot. And that's why it's a little overwhelming if you see 80,000 chemicals. You can just sort of put your head down and get poisoned and feel afraid of everything around you. But that's why we think if you think about 6 classes, and actually formaldehyde is not here, it would be a 7th. This isn't everything, but it's about probably 2/3, 3/4 of the harmful chemicals in everyday products.
And if we can get these. I mean, I would think that formaldehyde has a big enough deal. The EPA cares about it. They're already passing things about plywood and finished materials. So it seems like there's easy stuff. The stuff that you're talking about, when you first learn about highly fluorinated, antimicrobials, flame retardants, bisphenols and phthalates, some solvents and certain metals, I, as a normal American who drives my car and has my house and I do my stuff, would think, oh, we're talking about industrial stuff. You're talking about people who work in coal mines, not me. But, when I looked through my own pockets, I found a receipt which has
BPA.
BPA
Or
in
if
it.
they phase out the BPA, they replace it with BPS.
BPS.
And when I literally touch this, it comes off and gets through my skin into my body. I have plastic that is nice and soft on my
Phthalates.
wrist that has,
Probably phthalates.
which
to
also
make it
comes off
soft.
on my skin.
Quite likely.
Okay. And then we've got these chew toys, and somebody handed us a rubber ducky.
Yeah, so these are actually silicone.
It's probably okay.
And silicone's okay.
But the other day we're in a
Interesting.
restaurant and this manager comes up and he hands my daughter, my 2-year-old daughter,
Oh, yeah.
a non-toxic chew toy, which
That's
is
what
a rubber
he said.
ducky. I turn it over, it says made in China. And I'm like, what does the word non-toxic mean to Arlene Blum?
I would say anybody can say anything.
Yeah.
It's really hard to know, and there's such a lack of transparency that the person who wrote non-toxic might really believe it, but what does it mean? Or even more unusual, people will say, oh, our products are all chemical free. And I'm like, oh, chemical free. They're made of
Interesting.
air.
Yeah.
Air is a chemical. Contains
Right.
It's made of
chemicals.
deep, dark matter. Right.
Yeah.
So essentially, it's in everything. And one of the things that Grace and I, as part of Home Chem, which is how we got introduced to you, and everybody on the team is so excited that we were going to talk to you before we go there on Friday, is that they are just scratching the surface of indoor chemistry. You probably know some of what they're going to start finding out, and I think that a lot of what we're going to be doing is confirming what the very basic level science of the last 20 years has been pointing to. But they're not going to be doing a lot of, here's what we should do about this. So as far as practical applications go, how can we, as normal people, incorporate some of the 6 classes, like the companies that have adopted IKEA, Levi Strauss, Kaiser Permanente, Crate and Barrel? How can we use the 6 classes to do better?
Around all of these, there are consumer hints. Like the word fluoro, like if you go to buy cosmetics, the word fluoro will be in about a third of the cosmetics will have the word fluoro somewhere. So you'd have to read through all the
Okay.
ingredients. But it's if things say fluoro, I'd avoid them.
What about fluoride, like toothpaste? Is that bad?
That's it. That's a complicated question. So fluoride is a salt. So let me explain why some of these chemicals are so bad. The fluorinated, chlorinated, and brominated chemicals contain bonds between carbon and either fluorine, chlorine, or bromine. And those are really strong bonds. They're hard to break. So those molecules tend to go into your body and they tend to stay. And the other reason they tend to stay is there's no naturally occurring molecules like that in any mammalian systems. So the things that have evolved, they're called ABC transporters, that have evolved to keep toxics out of our cells, don't recognize these brominated, chlorinated, fluorinated chemicals, so they just go into our cells. And then the things that toss the garbage out of our cells, the bad things, they don't recognize them either. So they
don't
go
know
in
what
and
to
they
do.
just stay. So, and the fluorinated stay the longest, but the brominated and chlorinated do too. So they are problematic, but they are organobromine, organochlorine, organofluorine, carbon bonded. So they're problematic. But salts, like fluorinated water, should we fluorinate our water? I would say yes, because it's a salt. It's not bonded to carbon. It's like sodium chloride. That's
Can pass through your body. Your body recognizes salt and knows what to do with it.
Yeah. But then when you come to toothpaste, there's one kind. It's Colgate.
I'm really
Special.
nervous right now. I'm so nervous.
Is it Colgate Special? Colgate Plus. Anyway, if you look on it, it contains triclosan. So triclosan is an antimicrobial.
Uh-huh.
And it's funny, these things take a while. In 1972, the FDA started writing a report that triclosan and triclocarban, they're used as antimicrobials in soaps and a wide variety of products, actually were not beneficial and potentially harmful. So it turns out it's good to have bacteria on your hands, and you don't really want to use antimicrobials. Dental floss. Some dental floss they say they're Gore-Tex. And I think there's just one kind, maybe Glide.
What? It's got to be the one that you love.
Oh no.
That doesn't break. His teeth are always breaking floss.
No. Well, it's Gore-Tex. It's extra,
strong,
extra
extra
gliding.
strong.
Anyway,
Extra
that's
gliding.
fluorinated dental floss. I'd probably avoid it.
Oh.
We think with these chemicals, if you only used them when you really needed them, the use would go down by about 90%. And the health problems in our country would go down significantly too. So it's to me, this is a pretty simple thing. Learn what they are, only use them when you really need them. If you make a conscious choice, I think people should be informed and they can choose. If
I think it's a lot like
that.
diets. People will subscribe to like really clean eating or something, but then they still need that little bar of chocolate every now and then.
Sure.
Yeah.
What's wrong with a little chocolate?
Right.
Or like home performance, where we believe that the prescription for everyone's house should be the same. Everybody's house should be Energy Star certified, or everybody should be LEED certified, or whatever, is ridiculous. Because what do you want? Like, if you want to live for only 30 years, do whatever. You drink as much as you want, do as many, whatever. Have fun. But if you want to have kids and you want to, have 5 dogs but not have your house smell like dogs, then let's, do this the right way. So I think that idea of the performance, what's your goal? And I think that for a lot of people, the goal is convenience. Is that one of your main enemies in your climbing this mountain?
You can have convenience.
And still avoid the 6 classes.
Well, reduce their use. If you really... Exactly. Like carpeting is the number one source of exposure for kids. So if you say to you, you might not want a white shag carpet with your kids, or you might, because you'd have to spray it with PFAS to keep it clean. But if you did that, a toxic chemical would end up in your children that would be with them for a long time to come.
But a cowhide.
Yeah, but the question is it necessary to have that white shag carpet? Is it worth it?
Right.
And if you really want that white shag carpet, then invest in green chemistry. There are alternatives. They might cost a little more. But you can just have a dark or a speckled carpet. You don't need the stain repellents, and your kids can be healthy. But you want to be informed. Most people don't know that. So they have their dark speckled carpet covered in PFAS where they don't need to. So I think people, we need better labeling. So you have to be kind of cagey to figure out what's in things. So couches now have labels saying whether or not they have flame retardants, and usually they don't. So you ask to look for the label. They don't always put them in the most obvious place. But they pretty much, it's legally required in California, and most companies make the same thing for the whole country. So.
Yeah, but I also felt, we looked at 6classes.org, we watched all the videos, we listened to the consumer hints, and it started to give me that feeling that, frankly, I think sometimes homeowners who talk to us are like, oh, wait, there could be problems in my house. I know there's problems in my house. Now I don't want to know.
I think it's a lot like we own property in Atlanta now, and when we learned about poison ivy and poison oak and poison sumac, you step into a bunch of green and you just go.
That's all you see.
I'm so worried that I don't know what I'm looking at, but I know it's there.
But with some knowledge, like I keep water in my car in a glass bottle because it's baking in the car.
Sure.
And I try to use glass or metal bottles, but if I really want a plastic bottle, I have it. But I know I'm making a conscious choice. Well, before I knew about it, I just had plastic bottles of water baking in my car.
Right.
And was probably eating a lot of phthalates, bisphenols and things. So I think once you're educated, you can make better choices, maybe not perfect choices. The 6 classes isn't everything, but maybe it lets you reduce your exposure by 50% to some of the worst chemicals. So that's pretty good.
Who else is doing... Home Chem is not about human health because it's funded by the Sloan Foundation, which is all about, raw science not to do with humans. Who else is with you on studying the effect of chemicals on human beings?
Oh, a lot of people. Epidemiology and exposure science.
Well,
and there's a lot of people all over the world who study those things. And we have scientific partners all over the world on highly fluorinated chemicals, my favorites. For 5 years we've had international scientist calls once a month, and there are 85 scientists from about 20 countries. And we've become all good friends, and we suggest research ideas, and we share policy, and we share what's going on all over the world. So we try to keep the information going, and we talk a lot to the media whenever possible. So when people publish a paper, we actually have a media strategy that we help.
Do you see your work here as climbing a mountain, and in that analogy,
Absolutely.
will you know when you've reached the summit and when you can start going back down and relaxing?
Yeah.
Well, the summit, of course, is a healthier world for everybody with greatly reduced use of unnecessary use of harmful chemicals. So, well, I'm an optimist. Himalayan mountain climbers have to be an optimist because, there's a high fatality rate.
Yeah.
And I like to, so this really feels to me like when I was on a Himalayan mountain, because you have a great team, and we have an international team of scientists all over the world and also business people. We partner with trade associations and companies, and we all have the same goal.
Mm-hmm.
We're climbing the mountain, and there's storms and avalanches, and sometimes a yeti blocking the trail, and we're all together, and we all plod. And it's plod, it's hard work, and when the storms come in, you can't see the summit anymore. Yeah, so it feels very, very familiar, and I am optimistic because I think, what do I think? I think unfortunately, a handful of chemical companies want to continue selling these kind of old, profitable chemicals, while new chemicals will replace them, and they will still make a profit on the new chemicals, and they just kind of need to let go of the old bad ones
Right.
and move to new green chemicals. I mean, it's not easy, and it's expensive. Industrial processes, it's hard to change. So if you change an industrial process, you have to redesign the equipment.
Right.
That's what leads to you've heard the term regrettable substitute. So in the 70s, we learned that a flame retardant called brominated tris was 10% of the weight of all the pajamas that kids were wearing in America. And we found a little girl who'd never worn the pajamas because her mom got her pajamas in the UK, and we put her in the tris pajamas and collected her urine. And the first morning there were tris breakdown products that were cancer-causing chemicals in the little girl's urine, and every day she wore them, the level went up. She stopped wearing them, and the level went down. So it was pretty clear. Because, in America, things that we eat are regulated. Foods, drugs, pesticides. And you may not think they're regulated that well, but they are regulated. And who's to say pajamas are something that, you don't eat them, but it ends up in your body just the same. So,
And for sure, I know that I give my daughter, raspberries through her pajamas, and I'm constantly biting her. So I'm getting whatever. If those pajamas had 10% of their weight as a flame retardant, I would get it in me too.
They don't anymore, fortunately.
Right. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Thanks to you.
Thank you.
Right. So after we found they went into the children, we ran mutagenicity screens and found out that this chemical was a super strong mutagen, appeared to be a carcinogen. We wrote a lead article in Science magazine and did a lot of media, and 3 months later, tris was removed from kids' pajamas, and that was like, yay!
Because they passed a law.
The Consumer Product Safety Commission banned pajamas with tris.
Cool.
Didn't ban tris, banned pajamas with tris. They can only ban articles, they can't ban chemicals. About 6 months later, I decided to see what was still in pajamas, and so I bought like 30 pairs of pajamas in all different sizes, and the sales lady said, "Oh, you have such a nice big family, dear." And I felt like a super spy, and I took all my pajamas, and I cut little samples from like the seam, because I thought I can give these nice pajamas for shower presents to my friends, and I analyzed them, and then I realized I was not giving them as shower presents
To anybody.
because about a fifth had brominated tris still. It takes a while for the stock. But the rest had something that looked really similar, which was chlorinated tris, the regrettable substitute. And it makes sense because that way the industry didn't have to change much, and the chemical companies could keep selling something similar. So we wrote another paper after we found that chlorinated tris also was a mutagen, changed DNA, seemed likely to be a carcinogen, and has been found to be a carcinogen. So that was removed from kids' pajamas. But as you mentioned, it then became the go-to chemical in furniture. It was 5% of the weight of the foam. People have a couch that they bought between about 2005 and 2014. There's a good chance that 5% of the weight of the foam in the couch was tris. And then all these baby products, like if you have hand-me-down?
We do have some hand-me-downs, yeah.
Okay.
So if they have foam in them, high chairs, strollers, nursing pillows, the
From
foam
like 20 or 30
footballs.
years ago.
No,
No.
like
Longer
you're
than
saying
that.
from 2014, before 2014.
Okay.
TB 117 2013 was the new standard, so the standard changed in 2013.
So just to clarify, if we have any hand-me-downs of clothing and
No,
furniture,
just anything with foam. in it.
kids'
Foam.
furniture with foam in it.
Yeah,
any
toys.
A nursing
furniture.
pillow, for example, is considered foam. Like we tested maybe about 2013, I can't remember. We bought these nursing pillows covered in organic Egyptian cotton, but the foam inside was a cancer-causing kind of tris.
Ah.
And you know, and it's not illegal to sell flame retardant foam. It's just people have a choice and they choose
Right.
not to.
Have you looked at building foam, like foam insulation?
That is something that we have been working on really hard for 10 years. So 10 years ago, basically back in the 70s when there were a lot of fires, people said, let's put flame retardants in things because that will help. And nobody said, do they provide a fire safety benefit or do they cause harm?
Right.
And the answer is often no fire safety benefit, serious harm.
Seriously.
So the furniture foam is an example, and we worked really hard. We had to change a California regulation because the only place in the country with a regulation is California, and the whole country and Canada followed this regulation, which said basically that the foam had to resist a candle flame for 12 seconds, and the only way to do that is to make the foam like 5 to 10% by weight flame retardant. That's a lot of flame retardant.
Wow.
So if you have 40 pounds
Thanks,
of
California.
foam in your couch, 5%, you have 2 pounds of toxic flame retardant in your home coming out.
Because 12 seconds is a magical number.
But the deal is, it was bare foam. So if you drop a candle on your couch, what burns first?
Oh, yeah. the
Then you have a
materials.
big flame. And it only is 12 seconds, so a small flame. So then you have a second or two. And when there's flame retardants, the fire has got more smoke.
And
So
toxic
gases.
I
But
mean.
going on to buildings, so at the same time they said that foam plastic insulation, so that's polystyrene, polyurethane, and polyisocyanurate, all have to meet the Steiner tunnel test, which is actually not a great test for those foam plastic materials because they tend to drip and melt. And they are required to basically have flame retardants. And even insulation between the slab and the soil below the house.
Right.
So if you think about it, down there below the house, is there any oxygen? But nonetheless, they all
Yeah.
have to be flame retardant. And even in a wall behind a thermal barrier, that thermal barrier has to resist flashover for 15 minutes. And so by that point, a little bit of flame retardant inside the wall isn't going to do much good.
Yeah.
So we're about to build a house, and we're planning to have sub-slab insulation because we want to control heat bleed. But you're saying that the problem...
Well, it's not going to make you unhealthy. It's just not good for the world.
Is it just the flame retardants in foam insulation that give you pause, or is it the foam itself?
Well, that's a good question. I would say, and a lot of people say don't even worry about the flame retardants because the foam is not a healthy material. However, when I started doing this, which was about 2007, the same time that we started working on furniture, I spent a number of years saying move away from those foam materials. And what I discovered is the very top end, most conscientious people will do that. But those foam materials have the best R values. They're inexpensive. It's hard to find alternatives for below the slab. And basically, and I got to be like a master speaker at Greenbuild, and I delivered my message, and everybody was like, first you tell us to insulate, now you tell us it's toxic. What should we do?
What should we do?
But after about 4 or 5 years of preaching that, and nothing much happening except a very few high-end conscientious types like you guys, I thought, you know what? People are going to keep using foam insulation, and foam insulation without flame retardants is healthier than with. In fact, foam insulation is becoming the number one use of these toxic flame retardants that stay on the planet for a long time.
Really?
Because the market is growing. You know, like in California now, a wall cavity has to be twice as big for energy efficiency.
Right.
So twice as much energy efficiency is twice as much flame
foam.
retardant, and
Yeah.
foam, and twice as much flame retardant. So we've gone back to saying, that's a bigger problem, but because of the good R value and the low cost, I think it's going to be really hard to move away from it. You guys can, and that's great, but
We'll try.
Well, we make a point to tell our audience the things that we find out, so that's important to know. And I think
and like Kaiser Permanente really wanted not to use foam, and they tried like blue jeans.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
blue jeans work for one story, but they don't work for a big hospital.
They're tough.
I just don't see the mass market moving away from it. But foam without flame retardants is better than foam with flame retardants.
Well, and
does
then-
anybody make that yet?
Well,
Or are you even
it's
allowed to?
not. No, you're not. But in Sweden, they got rid of the flame retardants a long time ago. So we have been doing fire science research where we order our foam from Sweden. It turns out the foam doesn't cost much, but the transportation is costly. We have a few storage lockers full of Swedish foam. You pay a lot every month for storage lockers.
Right.
So in the 6 years since you wrote that paper, any other...
Well, yeah. So we're just looking below grade because that's the first place. And basically we've tried the code hearings. Actually, some things are going to happen, but we prefer the chemical industry know later rather than sooner.
Got it.
I can't wait to have a secret. That's great.
So it should be the middle of July. I'll tell you, but probably don't play it till the middle of July.
We'll tell you later. We don't understand how people can think about that kind of stuff and make the wrong decision repeatedly just based on money. Tobacco companies, flame retardant stuff, etc.
Pharmaceuticals, that kind of thing.
It's a mystery to me.
You can't see it either.
No, and I know them.
Hmm.
In fact, it's funny. Kind of everywhere I speak, they come.
They come.
Yes,
They
once
really know what you're saying.
I was doing a workshop, down in Irvine, California, and they just happened to be in the same hotel and available to join our workshop.
Wow. Wow.
And so these guys, they're like cheerful. The thing that's crazy is like you go to a brominated flame retardant meeting, and there's paper after paper, that when the chirping birds have higher levels of flame retardants, they don't chirp and they don't do their seed transfers and they don't take as good care of their young, and the snapping turtles don't snap, and and on and on and on. And these people sit there through all of that, and then they're as cheerful as they can be,
Right.
promoting their flame retardants, and very friendly to me.
So, as a major rock star advocate for chemical control, what would you, if you could have some magic bullet come out of home chem over the next 10 years of this indoor chemistry research, would it be that some clear evidence that these things are interacting and forming horrible things, or would it be
They're
that
already very problematic. They don't have to interact. So for me, I think what you're doing is great, educating people.
please do go to sixclasses.org, watch all the videos, read all of Arlene's articles, and empower yourself to make better choices, because this is important stuff. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
It's been really lovely to talk with you.
Thank you for reading it all and
Yeah.
watching it all. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Of course.